A week or 2 weeks ago, I posted a video on evolution and creationism in Islam, and one comment stood out. A follower wrote, and I'm paraphrasing, that there is no proof for evolution. You should read Stephen Seymour, especially Darwin's Doubt. And I want to say thank you for that recommendation, genuinely, because that comment gave me this video today, and I want to engage with it seriously and respectfully and with actual evidence. That is what this channel is all about. So today we are doing something a little different. We are going to look at Stephen Seymour himself, his book, Darwin's Doubt, the arguments he makes inside of it, and then we are going to look at what the scientific evidence has to comment on it. I'm not here to attack anyone's faith. I'm not here to tell you what to believe about God Himself. I'm here to talk about evidence. And I think if you stay till the end, regardless of where you stand yourself, you will leave with a clearer picture. So let's start with Stephen C. Mayer, who he is, because context really matters. Mayer has a PhD from Cambridge University, which definitely sounds impressive, and it is. And his PhD is in the history and philosophy of science, not in biology, not in paleontology, not in genetics. Now, this does not automatically make him wrong, but it does mean he is not a practicing evolutionary biologist, and his arguments should be evaluated with that in mind. He also works at the Discovery Institute, which is a think tank based in Seattle. In 1999, an internal Discovery Institute document called the Wedge document was leaked. In that document, the organization stated its goals explicitly, and I'm quoting directly here: to replace materialistic explanations with the theistic understanding that nature and human beings are created by God. Now, that is not a very scientific mission statement, is it? That is a policy and advocacy mission statement. Again, that does not mean at all that every argument they make is wrong, but you deserve to know who is funding and framing these ideas before you accept them automatically as neutral science. Now, Darwin's Doubt, published in 2013, became a bestseller, especially in religious conservative communities, and it is genuinely the most sophisticated book the intelligent design movement has produced. So Mayer's central arguments goes like this: around 540 million years ago, in a geological period called the Cambrian, dozens of new animal body plans um, appeared in the fossil record in what seems like a very short period of time. So Darwin himself acknowledged this on the origin of species and called it a serious problem for his theory. And Mayer argues that this sudden appearance of complex life cannot be explained by gradual Darwinian evolution, and because new body uh, requires massive amounts of new genetic information, and because natural selection cannot generate that information fast enough. The only adequate explanation is an intelligent designer. That is his argument. I want you to understand it fairly, because that is the only honest way to respond to it. So let's go through the evidence. First, the word sudden. When Mayer and other intelligent design proponents say the Cambrian explosion was sudden, they are using the word in a way that sounds, uh, it means like it happened overnight. But in geology, sudden means something completely different. The Cambrian explosion spans approximately 20 million years. Now, let that land in for a moment. 20 million years. For reference, the entire existence of all genus Homo, every human, every Neanderthal, every Homo erectus, fits inside roughly 2 million years. Modern humans have existed for about 3 million years ago. So when we say the Cambridge explosion was sudden, we mean it happened over a period of a time that is roughly 70 times longer than our entire species has existed. This is not a magic trick. This is a deep time, and it is one of the hardest things for human intuition to grasp, I think. Geologist Charles at UC Berkeley wrote an extensive review of this exact question. The Cambrian explosion, published in the Annual Review of Earth and Planetary Sciences, and his conclusion was that gradual evolutionary mechanisms are fully capable of explaining the diversification we see, especially when you understand the actual time scale involved. Uh, Annual Review of Earth and Planetary Sciences has it. Now, second, the fossil record before the Cambrian. Mayer spends a lot of time arguing that animal life appears from nowhere in the Cambrian, but this ignores the Ediacaran period, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, which comes before the Cambrian and which is filled with complex multicellular organisms. These are soft bodied creatures, and soft bodies do not fossilize well. This is a basic fact of taphonomy, the science of how organisms become fossils. The absence of clear fossils before the Cambrian is partly a preservation problem, not a biological one. In 2011, a major paper by Douglas Irwin and colleagues published in Science mapped out exactly how animal diversity was already underway well before the Cambrian boundary, using both fossil evidence and molecular clock data. The conclusion directly contradicts Mayer's framing itself. Uh, Moving on, we have the third point, which is that, and this is where Mayer invests the most technical energy, I think, the argument about genetic information. Mayer argues that new body plans requires fundamentally new types of genetic information, and that random mutation and natural selection cannot produce this information quickly enough. This sounds compelling if you're not familiar with how molecular biology actually works. But here is what the science says. Now we know that animal body plans are not controlled by thousands of completely unique genes. They are largely controlled by a relatively small set of regulatory genes called Hox genes, which act like master switches. Small changes in when, where, and how these switches are activated can produce enormous differences in body structure. A mutation that changes the timing of a Hox gene expression does not require new information to be created from nothing. It reorganizes existing information in new ways. Sean Carroll, an evolutionary development biologist at the University of Wisconsin, published work in PLOS biology demonstrating exactly how these regulatory networks drive major evolutionary change without requiring the generation of entirely new genetic information. I will link these series below if you guys want to give it a look, right? And you should. This is called Evo Devo evolutionary development biology, and it is one of the most exciting fields in science, precisely because it explains the kind of large scale changes Mayer claims evolution cannot explain. So there is also the matter of how the scientific community received Darwin's doubt. When the book came out, it was not quietly dismissed, it was actually reviewed and critiqued in detail by the working scientist, paleontologist Nick, who has a PhD from US Berkeley and was one of the key scientific witnesses in a landmark court case I will mention in a moment. Wrote a detailed point by point review showing that Mayer had misread and, in some cases, misrepresented the primary paleontological literature. Now, I'm just quoting him. Multiple other biologists noted that Mayer had cited papers in ways that contradicted what those papers actually tried to conclude. This is not name calling at all, please, mind you. These are technical, specific, verifiable criticisms. If you want to read them, search for Nick's review of Darwin's Doubt. It is publicly available and fully referenced. Now I want to talk to you about design as a scientific theory because Mayer presents it as a scientific theory. Here is the issue: a scientific theory is not just an explanation; it is a testable explanation. It must make predictions that can, in principle, be proven wrong. Intelligent design does not do this. It says we do not fully understand how X evolved, therefore, a designer responsible. But that is not a prediction, it is a conclusion. You cannot design an experiment to test whether a designer intervened. You cannot falsify it. This is not my opinion, this is the formal definition of what separates science from non science, going back to philosopher Karl Popper. And this exact question was settled in an American federal court in 2005. I think the case was, I don't know, some versus Dora or something school district. A federal judge, a conservative judge appointed by George Bush to be specific, ruled after extensive expert testimony that intelligent design is not science. It is, in the words of the ruling, essentially religious in nature. I think it was Kitzmiller v. versus Dover Area School, if I'm not remembering it wrong. Forgive me for mispronouncing it. So now I want to be clear that this does not make this approach completely wrong. Courts not rule on the existence of God, of course, but it does mean that it does not belong in a science classroom and it does not qualify as a scientific alternative to evolution. Now I want to spend a few minutes on Islamic angle itself, because that is the community this channel speaks to quite a lot. I think it has reached out to them, and I think this is where I want to be most careful and respectful. This is a there's a widespread assumption, especially in some Muslim communities, especially the conservative and orthodox one, that accepting evolution means rejecting Islam. I want to challenge that assumption with evidence, not with my personal opinion. First, the Quran does not specify how creation happened step by step, and it does not give a timeline. I think classical scholars, Islamic scholars, have debated the interpretation of creation versus for over 1,000 years, and there is no single binding scholarly consensus that rules out evolution. Second, many prominent Muslim scientists and scholars today fully accept evolutionary biology while maintaining their faith. Third, and this is the part I find kind of beautiful. Al Jahiz, a 9th century Muslim scholar, if I'm not pronouncing his name wrong, from Basra, wrote in his book Kitab al Hayawan about how animals compete for resources, how they adapt to their environments, and how weaker animals are consumed and transformed. Scholars of the history of science have noted that he was articulating something very close to the concept of natural selection 1,000 years before Darwin. Now, Islamic intellectual history is not at war with evolutionary thought. In many ways, it anticipated it. Um, Accepting evolution does not mean you believe life has no purpose. It does not mean you believe there is no God. And theistic evolution, the position that God created through the process of evolution, is held by millions of Muslims out there. Christians too, and Jews too worldwide. It is the position of the Vatican. It is compatible with the theology of many Islamic scholars. The argument that you must choose between your faith and the evidence, I think, is a false choice, and I think it has done real harm to Muslim students in science education. Here is what I want you to leave with. Stephen Seymour is an intelligent man who writes clearly and asks real questions. The Cambrian explosion is a genuinely fascinating and complex event in the history of life, and scientists are still working to understand every detail of it. Science does not claim to have all the answers, of course not, but the answers it does have about deep time, about regulatory genetics, about molecular phylogenetics, about the Ediacaran fossil record. Those answers consistently support evolution and consistently fail to support the idea that a supernatural designer must have intervened. The gaps in our knowledge are shrinking, not growing. And historically, every time intelligent designer has pointed to a gap as proof of a designer, science has eventually filled that gap. That is not a coincidence. That is just how science works. So, I'm not asking anyone to abandon their faith. I am not asking you to be honest about what the evidence. I'm just asking you to be honest about it. These two things can coexist. They coexist in me. They have coexisted in the greatest Muslim minds this civilization has ever produced historically. Ibn Sina, Al Biruni, Al Jahiz, these were people of deep faith and rigorous empiricism at the same time. We can be that too, I think. If I have gotten anything wrong in this video, a citation, a date, a characterization of Mayer's actual argument, please tell me in the comments and I will correct it publicly and without defensiveness. So, thank you for watching.